Welcome to Senior Speak New Hampshire. My name is Dan Wise, and I host this show for AARP. We are taping in the summer of 2026, and it's only going to be a month or so until the midterm primary election here in New Hampshire on September 8th. And so our goal today is to provide you with some information about voting. Not about who to vote. I promise you, we're not going to talk about that today. You've got enough options. You're going to hear about that enough elsewhere. We're going to talk about how to vote. And we are very honored to have as our guest today David Scanlan. He is the New Hampshire Secretary of State. So he is the official who is responsible for overseeing the implementation of election rules in our state and working with all of the local officials who run the elections in each of our communities. So I'm very pleased to have you on Senior Speak, Secretary Scanlan. Thanks for coming in.
Well, it's great to be with you, Dan, and hopefully we can give your viewers some really helpful information today.
Yes, that's our goal today. So let's start let's talk a little bit of an overview about how election law and regulations works in our state. And then we're going to get into kind of a lightning round, maybe with some questions and some situations that apply in New Hampshire. And hopefully we'll have time, because I want to ask you about how you predict turnout. What's the secret sauce, a formula you use to do that? I'm really curious about that. Anyway, so first question: what is the role of the state in regulating elections?
Well, the Secretary of State is the chief election officer in New Hampshire, and it is the Secretary of State's responsibility to administer the election laws. The election laws are created by the legislature, who determines policy, and then the actual conduct of elections in New Hampshire is done at the local level, where there are literally thousands of locally elected officials that run the operations in each polling place. Mm-hmm. We have a moderator who's the chief election official in the polling place, with the assistance of a clerk, supervisors of the checklist, selectmen. In a city, each ward has those same counterparts. They may have a board of registrars to register voters. Mm. And then the Attorney General's office in New Hampshire is responsible to enforce the election laws. So if there is some violation of an election statute, the Attorney General's office can step in and prosecute it if necessary. Mm-hmm.
And give advice on election day So if election officials are confused or have a question about that, are they going first to your office, or are they going to the AG's office? I'm just curious.
So as the chief election official and administrating the elections, a big part of that job is making sure that our local election officials are properly trained and up to date and knowledgeable on the election laws. So in the next month, we have a pretty lengthy series of training sessions planned that we take around the state to make it convenient for election officials to attend and learn. The other big job we're doing right now is ballot preparation, and we start sending ballots out 45 days before the election to individuals who serve in our military or otherwise live overseas.
So all of the so everybody who's applying to be a candidate or whatever, all those deadlines are passed. So that's pretty well fixed. And we haven't had any sudden withdrawals in our state. Thank goodness. I'm sure that would have been tough. So now, now we've heard a lot in the headlines about the Trump administration has made certain requests and things like. What is the federal role in elections?
The federal role in elections lies with Congress. And Congress has the ability to enact laws related to elections. But our U.S. Constitution says that the states determine the time, manner, and place of elections, which basically means conduct them. Congress has passed laws that I'm sure your viewers are familiar with: the Civil Rights Act, the National Voter Registration Act, which New Hampshire has an exemption from, the Help America Vote Act, the Military and Overseas Empowerment Act, all apply certain regulations to the election process that the states must follow, but the actual conduct of the election is up to the states.
So is the federal government more involved in the Constitution says, for example, does the Constitution say who's qualified to vote? Is that just basically citizens? Is that...
The Constitution sets the qualifications to be a voter.
Yeah.
You have to be old enough. You have to be a citizen of the United States. And you have to have your domicile, your residence, in the locale that you're voting from.
Right. Okay. So New Hampshire has been in the news somewhat lately as the federal government was asking for information about voters from your office. What's been your position, and what's at stake? What's the significance of the position that you've had to take?
Well, the last couple of administrations have tried to exert influence over the election process. The example you just described was a request from the current administration, the U.S. Department of Justice, to receive all of the voter data that is contained in New Hampshire's voter registration database. The voter registration database in this state actually has two lists. One is the public checklist, which anybody is entitled to see. That includes the voter's name, their address, their party affiliation, because any voter has the right to know who else is participating in the election.
Okay.
Along with that, because of federal acts that have passed, there is confidential information in the database that is associated with every voter. Birth dates, last four digits of social security numbers, driver's license numbers, naturalization information, among other things. The state law in New Hampshire requires that the Secretary of State protect the voter and make sure that that voter's private data is kept confidential. There is no corresponding statute at the federal level that says that the federal government is entitled to that information. And so as the chief election official, I have to follow the law that applies. That law is state law that says I'm guilty of a crime if I give that information out.
Yeah, because of that deeper level of information that your office maintains on voters. I see.
And protect.
And right.
Vigorously protect it.
Okay. Looking at so we've talked about then the other thing that's kind of been in the news recently was that there was the recent ruling that led to the reinstatement of the affidavit for people registering to vote at the polls who lack the documents to prove citizenship. And can you explain where we are with that right now? The affidavit process is in place again. That's what we're going to have this fall?
Yes. To register to vote, a person has to prove identity, number one, age, citizenship, and domicile. And for a while, probably a dozen years or so ago, all of those qualifications could be proven simply by a voter showing up and signing an affidavit that all of those things are true. some people in the legislature said, wait a minute, where's the proof? Why are we just accepting these people's word for it? How do we know that they are actually qualified? So over the years, the legislature has tightened up what is required to prove qualifications. In 2025, the legislature passed a law, actually it may have passed in 2024, that said a voter must now show documentation to prove those 4 items, and that affidavits can no longer be used as a proof. We went through a couple of rounds of local elections with that law in effect, but a lawsuit was filed challenging the constitutionality of the citizenship provision, and a judge in the Concord District Court, federal court, ruled that that part of the law was unconstitutional, and we had to accept an affidavit to prove citizenship. Currently, that's the status of the situation for anybody who is registering to vote. They have to show documentation of identity, age, and domicile, but they can sign an affidavit to prove citizenship.
I see. So prove the citizenship. So, okay. We're gonna do a little bit of the lightning round here. I'll introduce some common scenarios and then have you answer kind of what's needed to ensure our audience can vote. And for our audience, let's assume that our viewers are 18 or older and are citizens of the United States and are thus eligible. But here's some different situations. So someone has recently moved into New Hampshire from another state, and they haven't registered until election day, and they go to the polls. What would they have to bring at that point?
They should be prepared to prove those 4 requirements: identity, age, and domicile, and citizenship.
What does your driver's license prove?
Your driver's license would prove your identity. It's a photo ID issued by the government. It would prove your name. I believe there's still age information on the license.
Yep.
And if your address is accurate, it would prove your domicile. A driver's license, including a real ID, does not prove citizenship.
Yeah. Even though when you had there were a lot of documents that you had to produce to get a real ID, but citizenship wasn't one of them.
Citizenship is a part of the application, and the DMV will collect citizenship information, but non-citizens can obtain driver's licenses.
And it doesn't, the license doesn't indicate whether they're a citizen or not.
That's right. It's not clear by looking at the license whether somebody is a citizen or not.
Okay. Now, what if you have not, your license has not, you don't have your new license yet, or your new address yet? You don't have something. What do you need to prove? Yeah, like say your license, you've moved, but you haven't gotten, your license hasn't been changed yet, and that happens a lot. That can happen pretty commonly, I would think. You move, you don't necessarily think about the license.
You can use a government-issued ID, like a driver's license, even if it has expired for up to a period of 5 years. You can, a supervisor of the checklist will accept an out-of-state license because it's a government document to prove
Your
identity and maybe age.
Identity and age, okay.
Obviously, if it's out of state, it's not going to have your domicile address, so you'll have to prove that some other way.
And I know that the law that was passed in 2025, was it, or 24, it had some specifications for what, I've been to the polls when people were bringing leases and things like that. Some of them were good and some weren't. What do you have to prove your license, I mean your address, if you don't have it on a government document?
You have to show some evidence that you have established your residence at a certain location.
So your utility.
It could be a deed.
A deed.
It could be a
okay.
rental agreement. If you
Rental
are
agreement.
a renter and you don't have a rental agreement, there are some situations where that exists. You can have somebody attest to the fact that that is your residence. It's important to add with all of the qualifications, not just domicile, but for citizenship, name changes, that there are additional ways that the state can help prove those items. So if somebody walks into the polling place and they do not have proof of citizenship, obviously they can sign an affidavit, but a local election official can also now access the DMV database to see if there is a citizenship record on file. And if there is, they can verify the citizenship. Or that same election official could enter the vital records database and see if there's a birth certificate that exists for that individual.
So, okay. Is that new, the access to like the vital records
Yes.
and those sorts of things?
Yes, that is new to mitigate, the difficulty that some people might have finding their documentation.
Yeah.
It's also helpful for name changes.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that.
Vital Records has
okay.
marriage information.
So they would have the marriage information and a marriage certificate would show someone's prior name,
Yes.
for example. Okay. What about if I've lived in my town for many years, I forgot my ID, people know me. Is there a way I can vote if someone vouches for me?
If your name
And
is,
you're registered, but you didn't bring your ID.
if your name is already on the checklist and you show up at the polls simply to obtain your ballot, you need to show a valid ID. However, you can be recognized and acknowledged by either the moderator, the clerk, the selectman, or supervisor of the checklist.
So it would have to be someone who is affiliated with the town. It
Yes.
couldn't be your neighbor down the street who isn't. It has to be somebody
Has to be
who's part of the official
Yes.
of the town. Okay. All right. So I guess we talked about this a little bit. My last name on my license and my current documents are different than my birth certificate. If you lived in if you were born in New Hampshire, presumably the election officials could find it in vital records database, which they'd have access to, right?
Yes.
And if they were from another state, they might have to bring those documents. Is that
Yes.
what you'd say?
So if their name is changed and the name that they are using is, if there's not a match with the checklist, then they have to show documentation of the name change.
Okay.
If they had a marriage or a divorce or birth in New Hampshire, that information will be very easy to find.
What if they moved within the town, like a city, and they moved from one ward to another? Yeah.
If they move from one ward to another or from one town to another, and their name has already been on the checklist in New
They're already
Hampshire,
current, yeah.
there is a record of that voter.
Okay.
The only thing that voter has to prove then when registering in the new town is identity. You have to be able to show a picture of who you are, and you have to show your domicile.
Your domicile.
You have changed
Okay.
your location. Citizenship and age have already been established.
Got it. Okay, good. This is going pretty well. Good. So now absentee ballots. The first question is, do you need an excuse? You had a reason to obtain an absentee ballot? The form requires you to indicate something, right?
In New Hampshire, you can vote by absentee with an excuse. And that's a provision in our state constitution, that you can vote by absentee if you are absent from your community, or or if you have a disability that prevents you from getting to the polls. The legislature has expanded upon that to include religious observance, a caretaker of an infirm person, could be children, somebody who is working during the entire time the polls are open. All of those items are considered a form of absence or disability. In those situations, a person can request an absentee ballot to be able to vote, but the laws have changed on the process for obtaining an absentee ballot.
Yeah.
Now, the application must include either a copy of an acceptable ID, a driver's license,
Okay.
or it can be notarized, or the voter can go to the town clerk's office to obtain their absentee ballot and show an acceptable form
Show
of
their
ID
ID
while
there.
they're
Okay. So the notarization would be of who I am, of proving identity, and this is assuming that they're already registered.
Yes,
vote.
you
Okay.
would sit down in front of a notary and you would sign your name.
Okay.
The notary, as part of their job, would have to check your identity.
Check your identity. At some point, you have to show somebody some ID. I
Yes.
guess. Okay. So the ballot, absentee ballot, you get an application. You have to ask for the application. My daughter's had to go through this. She's a traveling nurse, and so, getting her to get her ballot has always been a challenge. So you get the ballot, and then you have to return it. And what's the deadline? We hear about all these deadlines in other places where, is it postmarked, or what's the deadline for ballots?
So ballots can be requested up until the day before. Absentee ballots can be requested up until the day before the election. All ballots have to be in the possession of the clerk, the moderator, by the time the polls close. I believe absentee ballots have to be received by 5 o'clock, which is typically when the post office closes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
If the absentee ballot comes in after that date, regardless of when it was postmarked, it's late. It is not counted.
Okay.
A absentee voter can check the status of their ballot by visiting the Secretary of State website and using the lookup tool that is on that site, so you can see when the clerk received the application, when the ballot was mailed to the voter, when it was received back, and ultimately whether or not
It was
that ballot
recorded.
was counted.
I see, whether it was counted. Okay, great.
Given the state of the post office these days, anybody who is voting by absentee through the mail, we encourage them to do it 2 weeks ahead of time to make sure that their ballot is received.
Now, I think I read something that someone else can deliver your ballot for you, your absentee ballot for you well, I guess that's the post office could, but I'm just thinking of some of our older voters or older residents who might be in a nursing home or something like that. I know also there's a thing about domicile that is a little bit different, right? That if you can maintain your original domicile, even though maybe you're in a nursing home in another town.
Well, in terms of absentee ballots being returned by delivery agents,
Okay.
a delivery agent has to be an immediate family member or a nursing home administrator.
Okay.
In the case of a family member, I think there's a limit on the number of absentee ballots that person can return.
Okay.
It might be 4 or 5. I believe the nursing home administrator can handle the absentee ballots for the residents of that facility. a person who is living in an elder care facility has the opportunity to vote from that facility or from the location that they came from before they moved in that facility. But once a voter in an elder care facility votes from that facility, they have locked their domicile into that location.
Okay.
And the only way it can be changed back is if that voter leaves the facility
Actually
and
is-
establishes their residence in another place.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. Is there anything else that you can think of of these scenarios that we haven't covered, or anything that we should just underline in terms of voting coming up?
There's a lot of rhetoric that is going around right now about the voting process. But in New Hampshire, we really have stayed with the fundamentals. So the general process has not changed. There are new ballot counting devices now, and literally every polling place that uses them. Some polling places are using electronic poll books, which help make the process more efficient. There is equipment in the polling places now for individuals with disabilities.
Right,
There's
right.
accessible voting equipment.
Accessible voting,
that has
right.
also been
Yep.
upgraded. So many improvements have been made, but the fundamental experience is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
If a voter has questions about the process, ask their local election official, their clerk, their moderator, because those are the trusted sources of election information. They can call my office, or they can call the Attorney General's office. And we have plenty of individuals on staff that are willing to help.
And the town clerk, I would guess that's the clerk's office is going to be where someone would go to register if they're able to do it before Election Day.
They can submit their registration application with the clerk. They'll get their absentee ballots from the clerk. The supervisors of the checklist are the officials that actually register voters. They actually put their stamp of approval on the application.
This is maybe something fairly new or whatever, but if you haven't voted for a while, could you be struck from the rolls?
Yes. Up until recently, every 10 years, New Hampshire would go through a checklist verification. And any voter who had not been active for 2 complete election cycles, which would be 4 years,
4 years, okay.
would have their name dropped from the list. And at that point, then the voter would have to re-register. The legislature decided to make that process more frequent, so that now every year we go through the process of verification, and every voter who has not been active for a period of 5 years
Okay.
has their name dropped from the list.
Okay.
So,
if you voted in you didn't vote in any local election or whatever, but you voted in the last presidential election of 2024, you'd be still good.
yes, and the way the law is set up now is if you just vote in the year that a president is elected,
You're still,
then you're going to be good.
yeah, if that's the
Moving
only one but okay. All right. So now I get to ask my question about turnout. How do you estimate what the turnout is, and do you have a good record for predictions?
I have a pretty good record. It is a science and an art. It is easy to go back through the Red Books, which is the manual of the General Court. It's where we keep all the election statistics. And we can find similar elections and see what the turnout was like in those elections. And you definitely see a pattern, and you can narrow the turnout down to within a range of percent turnout.
You mean so comparing like midterms to midterms,
Yes.
or presidentials to
Yes,
presidentials?
yes,
Okay.
yes. You wouldn't want to compare
Right.
this upcoming midterm to the last general election where
Right.
we were electing president because the turnout is always much higher in that scenario. But you can go back to the last couple of midterms. You can look at the races that were in play. Were there two strong candidates for governor? Was there a U.S. Senate race on the ballot? All of those things can affect the turnout. And then once that is done, you can kind of look at the mood of.
So there's the hard part, right?
Are there some issues, burning issues that have not been resolved that is driving interest and passion, and all of those things come into play.
And now the other thing I wanted to mention is that your office has been doing a few more things to kind of spread the word about elections. So there's these. First of all, the website has a lot of options. For example, there's a section of the website that has a number of different situations. So it isn't like you have to read the statutes to find out these answers, but some of the questions, the kind of questions that I have in our lightning round are on the website. There are some pages that you'll be seeing now of some things that you find on the website. And then there are some voter guides, and these are downloadable from the website. And they're also, I think there's various community organizations, including AARP is also, we're going to be handing these out. So there are these pocket voter guide. Now there's the senior pocket guide, which I think has a little more info about some of the absentee issues, some of the circumstances we talked about. And then there was sort of a general pocket guide. And there was also one for new Americans, which I haven't had a chance to look at. I'm not sure what the differences are in that, but it's so you guys have been doing a lot more to kind of spread the word.
We really have been focusing on getting the word out. We found that generally speaking, there is a decline in the understanding of how elections work, and that's not true as much with the seniors, but it's prevalent among our younger generations. And people don't realize when they walk into a polling place, they receive their ballot, they go to a booth, they mark it, they hand it in, but they're completely unaware of the checks and balances that are taking place in that room. The political parties have a presence. They kind of keep an eye on each other. There are audits that take place after the election is over. It's easy to get a recount. And so all of those things, when they're understood, should give voters confidence that.
And New Hampshire has, now I don't know how common it is in the country these days, but New Hampshire has, you fill out a paper ballot that then goes into a machine that scans and counts it.
Yes.
Doing it on paper like that, is that prevalent across the country, or are we among the better states?
Well, New Hampshire has always had a paper ballot, and we've used machines to count the paper ballot, but other states had actually gotten away from paper ballots and were having voters make their choices by simply touching a screen. Most states now are moving back towards paper.
I'm worried about hacking and
hacking.
Things like
I mean,
that.
it's.
When I first voted, I voted in Philadelphia, and in Chicago where I went to college, and they had mechanical machines. They had levers that you clicked on, and so I think those were mechanical, but I don't know if anybody
They were
uses
problematic,
that.
and they've gone
I'm
the
sure
way of the
those.
dinosaur. But
Yeah. But I love this system where you mark a paper ballot, and yet they're able to count it efficiently. So anyway, I also want to put in a plug for your website, which is sos.nh.gov. And AARP New Hampshire also will have some voter information. It isn't up there yet, but between now and before the general election, we will have some candidate statements and things like that where we ask candidates the same question. And so go to aarp.org/nh. I'm not sure. I'll put we'll put up a slide with the exact address for where we'll have our election information. And they have election information for all the states, but then there's some specific New Hampshire information that will also be out there. Well, this is great. I don't know if there's any, we didn't talk about the presidential primary, but that'll be for another day maybe. But I want to thank you for coming in and for suffering all my questions. I hope that we provide some information today, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Senior Speak New Hampshire.